Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining. We thought we would run a live demo event. I think the playbook approach is becoming kind of more and more familiar. It's had quite a lot of interest and had a surge increase in followers. So we just thought ease us back into the schedule for events this year, just do a quick live demo for you guys. So for those that are a little bit new to MethodGrid, we run monthly events and Grid Talk, and it's all focused on how we share best practice on program, project, capability development. I think the majority of people know me, but if you don't, I'm Pip Morpeth and I'm MethodGrid's CEO. But one part of our business that we were very clear on is it's much more about how we give back and help the project profession develop. And this is key to kind of the Grid Talk series. And we have another event next month, which I'll come on to later. So for this session, just wanted to sort of help you understand a little bit of background about MethodGrid, where it came from, how it developed, but also just help you understand the kind of shared problem that we try and help solve with clients. Spend some time then giving you a demo of the playbook approach, and then just time at the end. Might need it all, might not, but just time at the end for any questions that you might have. That's just the kind of core concept that you'll kind of understand as we go through. The whole thing we're trying to achieve with MethodGrid is ensuring that we do connect knowledge, process, and delivery, so that teams are connected that help them innovate and transform how they deliver in your business. So first point, and I know this is quite busy, and some of you may have been through this process before and might have completed the assessment. What we wanted to do with this slide, and I appreciate it's busy, it's just really get to the point of the problem, the shared problem that we're trying to solve. So fundamentally, all we're trying to do at MethodGrid is help reduce the cost of poor quality that comes from inconsistent ways of working, and which impacts either the way you deliver services or the way that you deliver projects. I'd say the pain points that we've got from client feedback, the pain points that we help them solve, are the kind of 1 to 8 across the row there. I won't go into all of them, probably just call out the key ones. But I think the pain symptoms they've expressed is, look, they recognize the way we do things in the business were inconsistent. Leading on to that is number 2, which is teams find it incredibly difficult to be collaborative, find the information they need when they need it, and there's kind of just a view that we're actually quite ineffective, not productive, and it's a kind of reflection if we ask staff that we're not putting the things in place that actually help them with the how and get the job done. A kind of 1 and 2 then tends to lead to 6, which is we kind of feel that teams are constantly reinventing the wheel. And it's not the kind of reinventing the wheel like driving innovation and growth. It's more just a frustration. I can't find something. I've built it myself from scratch, only to be told, oh, by the way, you should have looked here. And it's kind of the frustration of constantly feeling that teams are just reinventing the wheel rather than putting structure and making us get repeatable and faster. I think all of that, like 1, 2, and 6, leads to 7, which for staff and employees, it's actually quite a frustrating joining experience, and it takes them quite a long time to work out actually how to get up to speed and get comfortable with what's the ask and what's the way we do things around here. I'd say that's the kind of core pain symptoms, kind of just highlighted through the kind of number of assessments we've done. I'd say 1, 2, 6, and 7 are always read in most of the organizations that we speak to. And the why so for us, and it's kind of why does this happen? And this really helped us frame the problem for how we build MethodGrid. Which the first point is clarity on what the process is. Teams need it, and essentially what we find is in some organizations it can be but we haven't actually quite written it down, or it goes the other way, which is we've written it all down, it's massive, it's massive SharePoint, but actually it's quite difficult for teams, and it kind of always leads to two, which is I've written it all down, but the common phrase we get is, I think it just sits on the shelf. I don't think people actually use it, people aren't compliant with it. And I'd say universally, what we have a problem with is compliance to ways of working and building confidence that people are actually following process. I don't think there's anyone I've ever spoken to about this problem that's gone, oh yeah, no, we've got that totally in hand. There is always a massive drift problem between how work is written down or imagined versus how it's actually done in practice. So that's two, that's compliance. The third point then is just around people, really. People are going to need a bit of confidence to work the way you want. They're going to want to make sure they understand it, because their default, if they don't feel comfortable or confident in how to do something, it's our natural reaction to kind of pull away from it, step back and be like, oh yeah, I'm not sure. And that kind of behavior leads to them going, oh well, I've got a template elsewhere, I'm going to use this, I'm going to be more confident doing that, rather than trying to be compliant with the ways of work that you want them to follow. So you have to kind of look at it in terms of what have you put in place that builds confidence in people to give it a go and to do the things that you want them to do in the way you want them to do it. Normally we'd say here is, look, like 1, 2, and 3 are always in your gift. Like, you can control how well the process is defined, the controls that are in place to kind of manage compliance, and you can control the level of investment that you put in people and how easy you make it for them to understand and build confidence in how they execute. But there's always kind of a fourth point, which is just there'll always be kind of audit and assurance. I think the biggest frustration we get from teams is, I think I'm doing compliant, but then I've been assured and I've been told I haven't done X, haven't done Y, I haven't got this evidence, and I can't go through gate approval, or I've failed gate. And I think the biggest frustration most teams have is, look, can you just be clearer in what are the standards, what evidence do I need to provide? And in some ways I get a bit frustrated when I get audited, because all they come and do is try and, where's X, where's Y, and I end up pointing them at different SharePoints, where's this, so you need to look here, and it can be quite a drag on the team. So when we looked at Method Grid, it was very much like, how do you kind of get it so that it's completely transparent about, look, this is what the standards are, this is what the evidence needs, and if you do get audited and assured, this is allowing audit and assurance to access that information without the kind of constant drag and pester. And so that, for us, frames the problem that we need to solve and the why it causes. So when we set about trying to build Method Grid, we came up with a kind of simple concept. And the first point we recognized was, if we want teams to do something, like, these are the things that we want you to do, and the how, side by side, that is a much better experience for the human. You know, because if it's just, this is what you need to do, and the how is then scattered across different spreadsheets, different SharePoint sites, you will spend an eternity for them to try and find out how you want them to do it, rather than trying to connect those two information pieces together. So the fundamental concept of Method Grid, the first one was let's merge knowledge management and project management together. The second thing we learned very quickly, and it was, you know, with initial clients like MACE and Turner and Townsend, it was very much, look, we want the ability to build our own playbooks. We have a playbook for how we deliver this type of project for this type of client. We work in highways, we work in rail, we do construction, and actually what we need is the flexibility to build different playbooks for different solutions. So very quickly we came up with the concept of playbook, and we allow clients, for them as users, to build their own playbooks in how they respond to certain scenarios and challenges. The second point is, it's probably what we're known for, is how we keep it very simple, but how we keep it focused on what the human actually needs. So we came up with a grid structure because we felt that was the most intuitive for teams. helping them navigate the end-to-end life cycle. So look, here's the stages, here's your stage gates, here's all the deliverables, here's what you need to do. And then we want to logically break that down into either different functions or different groups, just so that we can see it transparently and be very much more visual to build confidence with people, because if you can see it, it makes it a lot easier for teams to collaborate and interact with it. And that's why we came up with a grid structure. We're not trying to be a single solution. We just really want to be the veneer that basically teams use to work out how they are going to successfully navigate end-to-end capital project delivery. And so we recognize that you may have other systems involved. There may be like SharePoint or OneDrive or Teams that you want to connect MethGrid to, and that's where you might want to store your documents. You also might have common data environments that have all of your evidence and your drawings in, so you want to be able to connect and evidence where that information is on your playbook. But I think the key thing about MethGrid is we're trying to make it incredibly transparent about what it is you need to do and how you do it. The third point, and I'd say this is probably the kind of key thing that differentiates us and adds significant value, and it came from client feedback very early on in our kind of development days, and it was, look, teams really like the playbook. It's transparent, it's easy for them to follow, and it gives them the information they need when they need it. However, we still face this challenge where when we want to use it, and we need to tailor the playbook. We've defined what we think should happen, but in some cases, the client wants us to move things around, or we need to adjust it because we're not doing this deliverable over here. We need to move it into this stage, or in some cases, we're not even commissioned to do that stage. We're only commissioned for stages 2 and 3. Therefore, we don't need the full playbook. And that was the key bit that we focused on: is how do you allow the platform the ability so that teams can tailor the playbook in a transparent way, but allow them to take more ownership of the solution of how we best deliver this project. And that's the bit. Sometimes it can be like, oh well, we've written what we've done in the PMP, and this is how. But actually, what we wanted to find a way of doing is making it completely transparent, both to the team, but also potentially the client, of how you've tailored it and how you've met their requirements. So the kind of concept we came up with is you build a master playbook, and then you have the ability in the platform to clone it, and you clone it for each project. And therefore, each instance of that playbook then can be tailored, owned by the teams, adjusted, but you then have complete transparency on how they've done that. But then they use that instance to tick things off, upload the evidence, so that you address the compliance challenge. You get more confidence that your way of working has been put into implementation and the teams are following it and they're compliant with it. The kind of fourth and final point, when we made that shift from kind of knowledge into delivery, we recognized that, well, we're now sort of tracking tasks and compliance and evidence. So we had to add kind of your MI and reporting to do it. But I think the more important thing for us, what we recognized is, because we integrate knowledge and delivery and assurance as a connected solution, things like lessons learned can be somewhat different about how you deliver them. So one of the key points for R&D this year is we ingest clients' lessons learned. But rather than just sort of telling you these are the lessons about your project when you start it and is it a good time to capture it at the end, what we're actually looking at is, I know information about your project, I know information about who you are and what user you are, and actually I know what task you're about to undertake or what task you're currently ticking on the playbook. By the way, I think you need to be aware of this. So things like, you can present things like, by the way, I noticed that you're using this particular type of cable, this has failed, we'd no longer use this, by the way, please change. Or it can be as simple as, I noticed that your project might be doing this type of change, by the way, your test plan needs to include a production test, a pre-prod test. And rather than think about it as, okay, lessons or information like at set stages, the whole philosophy of MethGrid is trying to push information when it's needed, not when it's kind of just a kind of control point that you've put into the process. So the core concept, and this just helps you understand what do I mean by playbook, is what we're trying to do is make it incredibly transparent to teams about what the process is and how they are, what evidence they need to be compliant with it. The second point is, when it comes to, look, these are the things that you need to do, and the how you do it, they are side by side. Now, you may connect to other systems to do it, but the core learning and giving them the confidence to give it a go is side by side. And more recently, we now kind of integrate the platform to e-learning resources so that essentially they're not lost at sea, and you can kind of build that confidence that they have access to the information they need when they need it. I thought we'd put this in, and I think it just kind of explains, well, that's all very good, but why? But like, what's wrong with our traditional way of doing it? And why don't I just go and map all our processes and build loads of process maps, problem solved? So what we wanted to do is just explain the way we see the world and what we see the problem with being the kind of traditional approach that you take. And so the first point is, we totally recognize the value that processes provide clarity. The problem is they don't provide compliance. And even when you have all your standards and all your information written down as a kind of set of knowledge articles, pages, we still detect and still find that there's high drift within how we do stuff. There's a line that says, look, we've written it all down, but how it's done in practice, there is significant drift in delivery between how it's supposed to happen versus how it's actually done. And that's the kind of high drift problem. Now, especially when you're doing complex processes that are all integrated and connected together, typically like program project delivery, it only takes a few of those to break down, and then you kind of create a critical failure event. Now, that can be, something didn't get signed off, our kind of PI, we didn't cover our PI or insurance, or in the worst cases, we haven't put in the right structure and controls in for health and safety, and there's been a hazard. And that's and what we find is most issues that you have, you're constantly firefighting issues created by drift. I do it as kind of a method grid. I'll always call it out and say, this is just a classic drift problem. We try to do something hasn't followed process and procedure, and now we're kind of managing the outcome for doing it. So it's kind of the phrase classic drift. So that's the first point. And the second point, I think this is probably the most impactful, is when we think about the traditional approach, our approach is to place the burden on the individual. We say, look, we've written it all down, it's all there, go and find it. And so it's always on the individual to go and find out how you want them to work. And the problem that it causes is the cognitive load problem. They have to build this picture in their head. I'm sure if you do it now for your own company, you probably, the longer you've been there, the better that picture is. And it's kind of like, oh, right, all of that information is in here, all of that information is over here, it's this SharePoint for that, it's that spreadsheet for this. But that's the kind of, frustratingly, I've had to build that picture of how I think you want me to work and operate. The bigger challenge with that is, well, that's my picture in my head, but someone else has a complete different picture of how they see the world in their head. And some of the kind of frustrations in kind of collaboration is like, guys, I don't know what you're talking about. Where's that? I didn't even know that existed. So that's the kind of traditional approach, is we're very much place the burden on you to go and find out where the information is. And then, do you know what? We'll be angry with the fact that you haven't been compliant with it and haven't followed it. There is another factor in here, which is more about the kind of human, which is, look, humans want to find the path of least resistance to any problem. Like, I've kind of used the phrase before, we're incredibly lazy. Like, we will instantly try and find what is the path of least resistance to get something done. And that is a problem. Like, you can't change that kind of behavior. It's wired into us. You kind of have to respond to it. And the challenge that creates is, if I can't find something, and I'm like, I've spent more than 2 minutes, 3 minutes searching around trying to find it, my reaction of frustration will kick in. And do you know what? Oh, I can't find it, but do you know what I'm going to do? I think I have a template over here that I used before. I'm just going to use that. And it's that kind of response that contributes to people not being compliant with ways of working, but also that kind of reinvent the wheel, and you start to feel that everything's inconsistent. So one of the key things you have to kind of design for is the human, and it's kind of like, how can you quickly ensure that they can find the information they need when they need it to basically improve your level of compliance. And then the third point, and we call it the shelfware trap, and it's not the fact that you've spent a long time writing stuff down and then kind of, you know, that kind of, I just feel like it's gathering dust on the shelf. That's not really the kind of main problem we see with the shelfware trap. What we find is the typical response that companies take is, if you have high drift, like we're really not compliant with ways of working, and we have kind of that low compliance, we don't think people, you know, I don't think people are following the process. That those two combined, well, the default response is, oh, well, what we need is we need more checklists, we need more second line, and we need more third line independent assurance. And the challenge that brings is, if you're not careful, you're not really addressing the root cause. Like, we're not helping teams get it right first time, but just trying to improve how transparent we are in what is the process, what are the controls, and how you do it. That normally is very distant and very disconnected, and that kind of leads to, oh, well, we want more checklists, more controls, more approvals. The challenge you're left with, and we kind of phrased it well, is kind of, you become an oil tanker. It's really, as a company, we become really rigid. We don't have much confidence that people get it right, and therefore the imbalance between lines 1, 2, and 3 become much more heavy and much more costly, that become more restrictive, and we need a checklist for X and a checklist for Y. I would say the shift that we're trying to help clients do is you always need a kind of mature approach and a balanced 3 lines of defense, but it's balanced, not that you substitute the failure of one for lines 2 and 3. If that kind of makes sense. I think, and this was a phrase, we do kind of a lot of work with the kind of knowledge management community, and I think the big push they did last year and this year is, and they recognize it as a challenge. Look, we are, when we think about knowledge management, we're really great. We, you know, kind of, as long as we've written it down, we tick a box and say problem solved. I think what the big challenge now is, like, we only generate value from knowledge when it's put into action. And that's the key philosophy that we're trying to take, is, look, how do we take all of your expertise and all your knowledge and translate that in a way that teams can actually follow, adopt it, and use it so that it generates value? Otherwise, again, it's just a piece of, it's a nice looking PDF SharePoint site, but essentially it will just gather dust and not be put into use. Right. Yeah, I'm on time. That's 20 minutes. So yeah, that's 20 minutes just on the kind of shared problem. So now what I want to do is just show you, well, what is this playbook approach that we take with MethodGrid? Probably just talk this story. So the kind of core concept is, like I've explained, we're going to show you how you'd go about, well, first, what does a playbook look like? How do you go about building it? And then, okay, great, I've built it. How do I then actually use it? How would I use it? How would a project team use it? How would I then build confidence that, yeah, that process has been followed and we're assuring that the playbook is being used? And then the kind of final bit of what we found with playbooks is, because they're used in delivery as an asset, A, it helps teams because they get the information they need. But what we also found as a bit of surprise was just how much more feedback we got from teams trying to improve ways of working. Like, not many people get excited about, oh, go and update a new page on SharePoint or Confluence, whatever knowledge static system that you're putting in place. No one really gets excited about that. But if you know that you are going to influence the playbook, which is used for delivery and assurance, and you want to improve that, and you know whatever kind of improvement or suggestion is actually going to benefit teams in use, you're a bit more vested in trying to actually drive improvements into ways of working. Right, so I'm going to flip screens, hopefully quite seamlessly. There we go. Right, but I'll have to look on it on this screen. There we go. So this is what a playbook looks like. This is, I think, yeah, just for example, a coded version of MSP. So for managing successful programs, you've got a whole suite of different playbooks potentially that you can build within the platform. I'll come out of it and show you. So you may build playbooks for how we do program project delivery. I'd say the majority of playbooks we build are very much built around Reba and the Reba stages. Our event in February is going to show you how to go about building a Reba-based playbook. So there's a bit more information about that event for next month. But you can also build playbooks for, this is how we deliver specific solutions. What is very common is the staff induction playbook. This is you get onboarded. This is your way of guiding people through that process. But you can also build playbooks for other, like procurement. There's a bid playbook for some of the PS firms. There's even playbooks that we have built for some clients, which are, look, this is how you go through ISO 9000 compliance. This is our ITIL service management playbook. So again, the concept I want to get across is, look, we want to try and codify to help teams navigate complex processes. And therefore, what do we put in place that guides them through the left to right so they have access to the information they need? So I'll just come back to this playbook example. So like I said, I'll go through the basics. So you can define what your stages are. So identification, initiation, delivery, somewhere we'll have deployment, and we'll have closure at the end. Again, you can control what you call your stages. And you can also define your stage boundaries. So we can say, look, who is going to approve this gate? What's the gate outcome? What's the purpose of this gate and its objectives? But then you get to the kind of key bit, which is what teams want to, is look, what are the questions or the exit criteria that I need to meet, that I need to evidence? And if it's required, what evidence do I need to upload that forms part of that gate assessment and review? So you can, again, tailor your gate dashboard for it. And it's the other bit. We're also kind of, you can be sort of grown up in terms of how you manage gates. Yes, we all want green. In the real world, there may be conditions. And I'd say most gates pass with a condition. But again, it's just giving you visibility and transparency about what gate decisions have you made and how comfortable you are with the level of risk those projects have. You then break down your playbook into themes, which are these. So yes, you can say, look, here's program project management, here's organizational governance, business change, benefits management. Again, we don't tell what the themes are. There are some that we suggest are based on best practice, but very much you can control it. And I'd say the core, one of the main benefits we found when we work with some of the clients is, look, I'm trying to join up project management, cost management, QA, QS. I want it as a collaborative solution because that's what I want to be able to provide the client. And normally the kind of situation you find is, well, yeah, but they all work differently. They've all got their own ideas of how they do things. But actually what we want to be able to provide is a much more integrated way of collaborating across those kind of key functions. So we'll talk about it probably in February with the kind of Reba playbook. It's much more, look, you've got project management, cost management, procurement, design management. But what you're trying to do is make that as an integrated playbook that teams can follow. So that's kind of themes. And then you get into, okay, what the elements. And what we're trying to do is be very clear with people and say, look, for this stage, for this theme, these are either the activities or deliverables that we want you to evidence and complete. And so I can open it up, and kind of just coming back to that core concept is, okay, this is what I need to do. This is how I do it. And we can provide a description, we can provide a video explainer, we can provide sort of tailoring guidance. So maybe this deliverable isn't needed on different types of projects. We can be clear on roles and responsibilities. We can workflow it so they can navigate through the different elements that they need to go through. We can put hints and tips, and we can also link to other resources or websites that we want to connect to. We may connect to training courses that the business has, and that can either be directly within the LMS or directly integrated within the playbook. But also, and this is probably the most popular one, is, okay, I've never done this before. Who do I go and speak to? And it's just facilitating that ability to say, oh, look, Harry, I've recently joined, do you have time to spend with me just to walk through this particular aspect of my playbook or this process? Now, the reason that's quite important is you're trying to control how people build their social network. Like at the moment, I kind of told you about that kind of cognitive load problem on where all the information is. But also, people are trying to establish themselves in the organization with the right people to speak to. And all we're trying to do with the playbook is just give them a bit of guidance on who is the best people to speak to, so you ensure that you're giving kind of better guidance and support about how they build that network. You can also, I'd say most playbooks are probably more deliverable focused, and we merge. So this is, being really clear on, okay, well, look, this is what this product is. Here's the template we want you to use. Here's some best practice examples. Again, here's a video, the format, the quality criteria that we expect, who needs to produce, review, and approve it. And then you can say, well, what inputs does it have from other deliverables, etc. So again, it's just ensuring that if you've never done one before, I've tried to catch that as response where you're going to go and try and find some old version from some either old company that you used to work for, but actually I want you to use ours. In terms of how you go about building playbooks, I click on obviously I think I'm set up as an architect, so I can do these things. You can control what level of access people have on playbooks, but if I have edit rights to this playbook, I can move into edit, and this allows me to kind of add my stages. I can move things around, adjust it, and maybe we want to add a new deliverable in program and project management and initiation, and I can click here and add an element. Now, obviously you've seen what the kind of standard element looks like, but our concept method is to build a platform that allows you to do everything. So I can go about building okay, I like the idea of a description, and I can define what that description is about this new deliverable. Maybe it's we need a statement. We need a statement of work. I can then be, okay, well, I want some tasks that I want to add to it, because I want to put the controls that I want to be clear on the team. I like the idea of an experts area, and off we go. So lo and behold, that's kind of the ability that you have, that if you wanted to, you could try and build a playbook manually. I'd say back in the early days of Method Grid, we were using templates. So you would come up with we come up with a standard look and feel because we want consistency. If you interact with a playbook, doesn't matter whether it's for any type of project, we always get to a kind of common look and feel of where the information is to get them familiar. That was probably up to about maybe mid 2022, which is then we started to look at, okay, well, actually, from our experience, when you build them manually with people, some people will write War and Peace. Some people will just put in three bullet points and say, I think that's good enough. So what we started to move on was to say, well, actually, can the integration of language models actually help us get to a first draft quicker? So I was with testing with a few clients initially is, okay, well, can we design templates and control the prompt engineering to the language model so we can give it context? But ideally, yeah, I'd like it to write the purpose. I'd like it write the format and composition. I would like the quality criteria, and with a bit of luck, maybe have a go at who should do it in my organization. So here you go. So this is kind of an AI rendered statement of work. It's given us a short description of the purpose. It suggested some key activities. It's put in what the objectives are. It said this is format and composition, hints and tips, what's the quality criteria, and it's had a go at quality responsibilities. Now that's just I think it's just a generic, that one is just a generic based on project management best practice. What we can do with the model is obviously tailor it and tweak it so it recognizes kind of your roles or your grades in terms of right sizing the model for your business. But overall, your ability to quickly start to provide teams access to why it's important, its knowledge, its objectives, what the quality criteria is, you can move quite quickly. Some of the other challenges we've had some clients is, look, I don't have any templates. Again, we use the same AI model to take the format and composition and then ask it to generate a template. But we're a bit more prescriptive. We're like, can you describe each section, what good looks like? Can you write some example text? So that if they open a template, at least again, we're trying to make sure and encourage adoption rather than, oh, it's just some blank headings and I don't really know what I need to write. We use the same technology from here to then build video explainers and e-learning by taking the content from the playbook and asking AI to generate either AI generated video explainers or e-learning courses. So that is predominantly the kind of concept that you have for building playbooks. Again, you can build different labels as well, so you can be really clear with teams about, well, look, which deliverables are mandatory, which ones are optional, just to be clarity on what the standards are. And that is the kind of core concept that you have about how you build playbooks. Some of the more advanced features that we do for clients, the kind of more integrated experience is, yes, we might build guidance elements that explain key concepts to teams. So what is risk management? So I can look at this is what it's for, key lessons, and this is the more integrated experience where, okay, actually I have e-learning courses, but I want to integrate them into the playbook. So now I'm interacting with e-learning directly associated to the playbook. So if I'm not sure and if I want more information of how to do it, I can now seamlessly navigate and get more confidence in how to do things. But that's not me now going off and trying to remember where that training course is and which LMS and which module. I literally have access to that whilst I'm in delivery and whilst I'm using it. So the next concept is, okay, well, I like this concept, I like this master playbook idea, but how do I actually go about using it? So with the right access, and I think I've set this one, yeah, this playbook's been set as a master grid, so this is our template that we want to use. I now want to commission a new project, so I want all the templates, I want all the knowledge, I want all the controls, because I want the team to follow it. And what I can do is, is click here and say, look, I want to clone this playbook, and I want to clone it with all its elements, because we're now, we've sold this piece of work, and this is how we do it, this is how we're going to deliver it, and we use this master playbook as the benchmark by which we tailor and configure how we deliver. So I won't do it because it'll take about this playbook's quite big, so it'll take about a minute to do and clone. So I would click that, and then it will put the playbook in a folder for me. And here's one I did earlier. So I might have kind of a portfolio folder in Method Grid. It can either be whatever you call the portfolio, or in some cases it might be a group of projects that clients have. So I've got this one here has already got a network rail PACE station project, but you can see here that here's the clone of that master program delivery playbook. So now that it's a clone, it's completely detached from the master. So now I can start saying, okay, ooh, how do I tailor it and right size this for this particular project? And first of all, I might be like, okay, this is, I don't know, hybrid program, whatever name you want to give your project. But also I want to assign it to Harry, because Harry's the person that's going to be responsible for managing this project. And then what Harry can do is, he can start tailoring the playbook and say, oh, okay, actually, for some reason they want the PDD in this stage for some reason for competence. That's how the client wants it done. So we're sort of adjusting and moving it around and adjusting the playbook and right sizing it. Now, the important part of that aspect is also quite important about the human psychology for people to be compliant. So one thing you're trying to encourage with method grid or with a playbook concept is, I want you to own the solution. And I want to give you the freedom, project managers, because one of the responses you will get is with any method is kind of, oh, well, I can't tailor it, I can't right size it, therefore I can't use it. And we kind of want to challenge that and say, well, actually, no, I'm giving you the tool now to right size and evidence to me how you best design the solution for the client. But in doing that, what you're trying to get connected to is the connection to the individual, like Harry, is you own the solution, Harry. I want you to bring your expertise and right size it and shape it and demonstrate it to us, because we want them connected to feel that they're in charge of the solution, rather than it just be a, here's your playbook, go and tick a box and fill it in. It's much more to be dynamic and adjust to the situation and environment that they face. But then Harry then has the ability with the team, and you say, well, look, who's the lead on each work stream? So I can say, look, Rosie, you're in charge. Rosie, I want you to take leadership on this particular activity. And again, I can start to assign Rosie and Sonia to the different tasks that in my playbook, and I'll assign me because I'll get an email. I won't bother the team. But then, so in terms of helping you with clarity on roles and responsibilities, the team now have much better visibility about who is doing what, and then it's just that's one of the first challenges, is just clarity on who's responsible for what. But then you have the ability, and they can start ticking things off. We can set calendars, we can set dates on particular activities. But one of the key things that we changed is, look, okay, program definition document approved, great, I'll just tick that off. But in some cases, you may specify that tasks need to have evidence, because either we need the final approval, we need evidence that that's been done. So what I have to do now is I connect to either my computer, SharePoint, OneDrive. My computer is OneDrive anyway. And then I will then connect through and add and find the evidence either on the team site or SharePoint. And I'll just put in this demo. I'll find something quickly. There we go. I'll upload that evidence. And then once that evidence is uploaded, I can tick that off. And that's the kind of transparency. So if people want to find the latest version of the document, or if assurance and audit want to find, have you actually done it, that now is completely transparent. And there are nice things that teams can start to say, well, look, we're a bit worried about this one. This is now complete, and we might want some of the visual management to help the team, so that you can change the color of how the playbook changes based on the kind of completion status, or if they've got overdue tasks, so that it can be more. Whilst I do understand the kind of value of switching between like the playbook view and the schedule view, the schedule view is probably much more for project managers than it is for an integrated team that are trying to work through and guide them through the process. So that's the kind of concept that we're trying to help teams with, is you've got access to all the information you need when you need it. We're very transparent on what are the controls and what's the evidence needed. we want you to be able to tailor and right size the playbook for your project. We build trust with either clients or with sponsors, but fundamentally we want you to fill it in and evidence as a control, because it's what gives us confidence that you're following our process and our ways of working consistently. Finally, I think I'm just going to overrun a little bit, but obviously, naturally, you will want the ability to build your own dashboards and reports, which the platform provides you. You'll want to kind of have a look at all grids within the platform, or who's assigned to what, and you want to be able to see their completion status and be able to drill into that, right up to, if you need it, and some clients do, where they need to evidence audit about specifically when things were done. You have a kind of full audit trail of any change that's been made to any project, to any platform. So if it ever came to any form of audit that you were undertaking, you would have complete transparency of how things are done. The other kind of final point on the platform is, yes, we do provide an API that allows you to pull all of this data out of the platform. So you might have Power BI or other reporting systems that you want to feed this data into. Plus, if you want to connect MethodGrid to other applications, the API will allow that as well. All right, I'll just return and stop sharing. So that's the kind of core concept of MethodGrid, and yeah, predominant use case that we have for MethodGrid tends to be capital project delivery. So it's either kind of Reba, or we'll work with someone like Network Rail, where we kind of codified PACE, or with SSE, it's their kind of LCP construction about how you build onshore and offshore wind assets. MACE, I think, is a combination of their control system, and they use it for kind of package management. Gleeds is project and cost management. Amy is P3M, PMO, and obviously they use it directly with Network Rail on some of their projects. I'd say the main kind of points that you look for MethodGrid is obviously its productivity, because we want people focused on value, not trawling around SharePoint. It's trying to help teams be more efficient and improve collaboration. Quality is a massive push. Like, we're just trying to make sure that we reduce the kind of claims, cost of poor quality, but also in some cases, especially for the PS firms, it can be one way that you demonstrate genuine IP. And obviously, what we also nice feedback from clients is actually it improved confidence with end clients, as kind of helping them with confidence in how they deliver services. Cool. I'll pause there and just see if there's any questions. There's a few in the chat. Sorry, I didn't stop, but a few questions. Let me have a look. For assurance reviews, is the form in a collaborative space and does allow reporting across portfolio metrics for completion of post-gate actions? Yeah, you can. So I don't know if you saw it on the demo. You can pull out all stage gates, their status and their compliance. I think the system even does a slight risk-based calculation on the completion status of the exit criteria and evidence on it to give you an indicator. But you can pull that out, build a widget for it on your own dashboard, but I'd say most commonly they will pull that out and integrate it with other reporting tools using Power BI. But yeah, you'd have complete access to the data. Rab, is program delivery being put out into the example grid sections? Not that one at the moment. Mainly Rab, probably that's more just like Axelos IP challenge. I think we use it internally and say, look, it's an MSP one. I think the next one we're working on, which we think would be beneficial for clients and teams, is a Reba-based playbook that aligns project cost management as a starting block for you to be able to define how you want to do capital project delivery. So that's the one that we're working on at the moment. Sam, Harry, is new starter scenario your thoughts, please, on the importance of clients ensuring that Harry does speak to the needs to speak to versus the ownership of content and a mature established playbook remains connected in a virtuous circle. I think what I'd be very clear on is when you put method grid into your organization, there are new roles. You can't get away from it. You're having a playbook owner that takes responsibility for that master and the quality, and gathering feedback from different teams about how you improve it. And so there are kind of new roles that you kind of have to put in. But I think it is critically important how quickly can we get new staff on board. And I think I bring you back to that diagram I had before, which is if they've got to go and build that cognitive picture of where everything is and who the right people are to speak to, and they do that by trial and error, I think in reality your kind of staff onboarding like speed to competency is probably measured in sort of 12 to 18 months rather than sort of the kind of 6 to 12 weeks. And that's the real challenge. I think when we did a baseline survey with one of our clients, and the kind of feedback from the graduate entry grade was, it was about 15 months before they felt comfortable in how to do things. And that's quite a damning sort of bit of feedback, and what kind of drove the kind of drive to really actually provide a much better integrated experience for people in how we want you to deliver. Any more questions? What did I think there's some. I'll put a few there. What are the use cases for playbooks of clients implemented? So I'd say naturally the one is what I've just gone through is kind of how we deliver projects or programs. That's the most common one. Other ones is like how do we do procurement? What is also becoming much popular is like, here's all of our policies and standards within the organization. Mainly because now, yes, we have all of these standards, but now we can integrate the learning, we can integrate video explainers. And then what we do is then we integrate the standards elements with some of the playbook assurance playbooks, so that, okay, well, we want you to comply with this standard. It's relevant on this particular activity or this deliverable. And then you can click and it opens up the policy with the information there, but you're defining that once and making it accessible. That's quite good for kind of building regs or kind of your internal policies. Typically, in terms of how long does it take to build a playbook, I think it depends on the kind of level of quality that you want and the kind of starting blocks. Normally, we're trying to get a playbook out to kind of MVP, ideally within a 6 to 12 week window. And that is probably enabled significantly by the use of AI now. And we're not saying that AI answers all your questions, but it certainly gives you that first draft. And rather than asking SMEs to kind of write it down, really what you're asking them to do is, could you just read this and make sure there's anything you want to add that's relevant to us, that's specific, or maybe probably really bespoke individual processes that AI wouldn't know about that need to be manually written. But most of it now is well, actually, it's review a draft, risk register, spot on. Okay, that's now set up and approved. So I think normally you can operate within kind of a sort of 6 to 12 week window of how long it would take to get your playbook out. And then what we recognize is, obviously, thank you, first of all, for joining the demo. I don't expect you to kind of, go and buy it. What we found really helpful for us and for potential people that are interested in it is to actually run a prototype session with teams. So we do a kind of one-day workshop. We don't charge for it because it's just really for us to work out if we are a good fit for you. And it's just a prototype session. We can look at your existing delivery framework, whether it's existent or non-existent, but we just sit down then and spend most of the day trying to build a working playbook that gives you an asset that we can show other people. And it's really just about building kind of solution fit confidence, but also giving you an asset that you could potentially share with either your leadership team about, well, actually, we think this is a new way of working, and this is the look and feel and the experience. if there's any more questions. No, cool. Okay. We'll send the deck out and we'll send a recording out to you. The deck includes obviously links to some of the other things that help. So there's an online version of Method Grid, which is PACE read-only. So that's global, that's publicly accessible, which is a read-only playbook for PACE. And we have the kind of digital version in the platform for used for assurance, and the case studies there for Network Rail. If you're interested in what we do in terms of the academy and the learning, there's a little link to a video about how we do that. And then I think probably the key paper we produced with clients was, okay, I'm interested in building a playbook. So what we built is a white paper that just helps you understand, okay, well, how do I go about it? What are all the things I kind of need to think about first before I then start putting pen to paper on what the playbook, how I actually design and build that playbook. And that's our kind of, I'd say that's our kind of playbook Bible. So yeah, please, if you haven't done it already, please download it. For next month's Grid Talk, and we think this is probably much more, if you're in capital project delivery, I'd say most playbooks that we help firms with are Reba based. So what we're going to do is just run a session at the end of February, just running you through the Reba prototype for project delivery. So we think that will be the kind of starting building block for you. If you were to start Method Grid, you would want that template as a kind of a starting block for helping you build your kind of integrated Reba delivery playbook. Cool. That's it. So listen, I think we'll be putting this up on YouTube, and I think we'll make it accessible on our website. But first of all, just to say thank you for giving us the time. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you don't, please follow us on LinkedIn so you get more information about our events. And if you'd like to have a talk or want to talk in a bit more detail about your business, then please feel free to reach out to myself. Okay. Have a wonderful afternoon and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.